welcome everyone. My name is Yu-Wen Wu. What? Too loud? Not loud enough. Okay. All right. I'd like to thank Mayor Pablo, the ASAB, and Dalila Benfield for holding this symposium on such a relevant conversations in this contemporary times. I'm honored to be invited. I'm an interdisciplinary artist in Boston. I'm interested in movement and migration, whether it's due to climate change or environmental disasters or political and economic threats. The outcome in all of this is displacement that affects individuals and societies. Through my own experiences of immigration, my work reflects these issues of displacement, assimilation, and questions of identity. I emigrated from Taiwan to the US when I was about 7. Because I have many memories of where I came from, I'm going to begin with a very brief history of Taiwan. I was born on this island. It's only about 13,000 square miles. It's a little larger, a third larger than New Jersey, which is where I eventually lived and grew up. It also consists of several islands. The Taiwan Straits from China is only 110 miles from the mainland China area of Fujian. Given that it's such a small island, its history is full of occupation and colonization. It's believed that the Taiwan Aborigines are Austronesian people living on this island in relative isolation for about 5,500 years before the massive influx of the Han immigration in the 17th century from China. My family is a mix of Aborigines origins, Dutch, and Han Chinese. The island was named Formosa, named Beautiful Island by the Portuguese sailors in the late 1580s. The Dutch established a stronghold in 1662. They called it Dutch Formosa. The Spanish colonized areas of Taiwan in 1624. And then in 1662, this began the colonization from China when the Ming Dynasty collapsed. So in a span of very few decades, you can see it's been occupied several times. When China lost, When China lost the first Sino-Japanese war, Taiwan was the prize. And the islands were ceded to the Japanese, which occupied Taiwan in 1895. Around 1935, they began an assimilation project. What does this mean? It means that to bind the island more firmly to the Japanese Empire, people were taught to see themselves as Japanese, during which times Taiwanese culture and religion was outlawed. My family were all subjected to this law. What finance my family had was taken for the military. My grandfather, who was a teacher, was forced to teach Japanese in the school system, while my grandmother sewed at night to make extra money for the household. My parents, as middle schoolers, were forced to do chores for the soldiers in their town. In 1949, after losing most of the mainland, Chiang Kai-shek and the Kuomintang established Taiwan as their temporary capital of China. Martial law was declared in Taiwan in May 1949. It was a way to suppress political opposition. This continued to be in effect until 1987. My memory of this period was that we were not permitted to speak Taiwanese. We could only speak it at home, and Mandarin was the mandatory and enforced language in the schools. To this day, because I left for the United States at a very early age, my Taiwanese is better than my cousins, who were not allowed to speak. Fortunately, there is a resurgence now to not allow this language to disappear. The United States began formal relations in 1844. The U.S. and Allied forces helped the Kuomintang in the Japanese era in 1945, establishing the beginning ties against communism. But it really gave no clear commitments. Here's a photo of Chiang Kai-shek during the Eisenhower visit. While Eisenhower in 1953 was not alone in shaping the U.S. policy during this time, he is remembered by many Taiwanese as having taken a personal interest in the fate of the Republic of China. Let's turn a little bit more to hope. Hope is why immigrants leave their homes of origin. From religious and political persecutions, economic desperation, and now, add to this, is the onset of climate change. My father left during the time of martial law in Taiwan. The U.S. established the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act, which finally opened access to Chinese immigration. He came to the U.S. to receive his degree in engineering. With one suitcase and America's promise of opportunity, he received his master's in engineering. A few years later, my family joined him. And I was 7 at the time. Although it's a cliche, I believed the streets would be paved in gold. I understood later that this was a metaphor for opportunity. I'm going to show you a piece, just relax, called Migration on Yellow Brick Road, which references the golden paved roads that I thought. This is a composite video, and this I worked with a Boston composer and performer, Aaron Trant. So, what does it mean to arrive in a new country? Nearly 2 centuries ago, Chinese immigrants came to America, drawn to the California gold rush. They left because of the extreme poverty for many, because of the Chinese losing the Opium War. Gold Mountain was initially named for California, and in particular San Francisco, where the immigrants embarked, bound for gold fields. These immigrants labored under extraordinarily harsh conditions and faced terrible discrimination, and many were brutally murdered. In 1882, the U.S. government passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, one of the most egregious impediments to free immigration in U.S. history. This was replaced in 1945 by the Magnuson Act, which permitted Chinese nationals already living in the U.S. to become naturalized citizens. It was a political move due to China and American alliance in World War II. Although it was a positive development, it was a strict quota, only allowing 105 new Chinese visas entries per year, a disproportionately low ratio compared to other ethnic groups. This restriction was finally lifted at the height of the Civil Rights Movement with the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, and that increased the quota to 170,000 per year. And that's when my father came. In a resolution sponsored by Representative Judy Chu, the first Asian American elected to Congress, the House of Representatives officially apologized for the Chinese Exclusion Act. This rare apology occurred only recently, on June 18, 2012. Here you can see Angel Island on the top and Ellis Island. These were centers of processing. From 1910 to 1940, the Angel Island Immigration Center of San Francisco served as the processing center for new Chinese immigrants, and some were detained for years, living under barbaric conditions. Racism created Chinatown as a way for immigrants to survive. In the broadest stroke, Chinatowns were products of extreme forms of racial segregation. In this ongoing project about departure, assimilation, and identity politics, I feel I have more questions than answers with many levels of complexity. Like many of the panelists' discussions in yesterday's discussions, I understand the feeling of not quite belonging to where I came from and where I am now. How does an immigrant assimilate and still preserve what we came from? How do we pass our knowledge to our children? And what is that knowledge? And how do we reconstruct identity? Even as the world becomes more globalized, my cousins in Taiwan don't know many of the traditions my grandparents practiced as part of their daily lives. So clearly, there's many, many issues that are being addressed. I leave you with an excerpt of an installation completed last year in collaboration with an artist in Minneapolis. This piece is titled Crossings. It was started in 2014. It's in response to the current global forced displacement of populations. According to the United Nations High Commission on Refugees, on their global annual reports, the number of people forcibly displaced at the end of 2014 has risen to 60 million. It is now 65 million in 2017, 65.5 million. Indications from the first half is that it will continue to rise. This installation, Crossings, calls attention to this global crisis. Under boundless skies that belong to everyone in beautiful landscapes are hard borders and boundaries. Geographies of mountain and seas make the journey for hope treacherous, if not impossible.